Yeah, I look at it all the time. Everybody comes in, they look at it, they love it. They say, "You kidding me, right? You caught that?" This is true. Hi, I'm Captain Archie Jost. I fished on Swords, Life on the Line on Discovery Channel. You name it, I've caught it. Well, as you can see, I have a lot of fishing stuff in my garage, like most fishermen that are into it. I've been into this. I'm 83 next week. I've been into this since I'm 10 years old. So I love fishing. As you can see, some of my history back here, some of the pictures, sailfish rods up top here, and I got some tuna rods over there. The heavy equipment is out on the boat. This is on Swords, Life on the Line. That's Captain Linda Greenlaw there. She's the captain that was portrayed in The Perfect Storm. She's written a lot of books. My favorite books is I'm the #1 character, and it's called Seaworthy. And that's a picture on the boat. These are also pictures on the boat when we did Swords, Life on the Line on Discovery Channel in 2007 and 2008. It was a good experience. All these pictures are the crew, all the good times we had on there. I had a lot of bad times on there too. I had a lot of rough weather. And that was, we actually put a wreath out that was portrayed in The Perfect Storm. On Halloween of that 1991, we were out there doing this shoot for the show so many years later in the same spot. We were actually fishing about 75 miles from where the Titanic sunk. So it's a long ways out. But I love fishing. I got a lot of history. I love sword fishing. We do a lot of sword fishing. My favorite is giant tuna fishing. When it comes to the price of tuna back in the 80s, I have a little story that right here in Florida. We were fishing 400 miles east of Cape Canaveral, and we caught 2 giant bluefin tuna. We brought those giant tuna into Pompano Beach, and we sold them to a company back then called Triple M. They were Mike. There were three guys with their last names were M's. What it was called Triple M. They also had fishing boats, but they were buying fish in those days. And I sold those. Actually, we had to get towed into their marina to unload the fish because we lost our rudder right in a coastal. That ended up costing me a lot of money to get the rudder fixed. But anyway, to make a long story short, he shipped those 2 fish to Japan. And to this day, they were the 2 highest fish ever sold in the state of Florida was $54,000 for 2 giant tunas. It was the right time of the year. Sometimes you hear these things in Japan where they're paying them $2 million for a fish. Well, we were happy with $54,000, but it was like in January. So it was the right time of the year. And it was back in I want to say maybe 84, 85, 86, around that time. 50 wide tuna rods for like in the Bahamas over there. These up here are sailfish rods and different spinning rods and things. You just accumulate a lot of this stuff over the years. I got inshore rods over on the other side of the garage there. I do a lot of pompano fishing. I love pompano fishing. So when I'm working here in my shop, I keep these pictures here because it's just such great memories. This is my son Greg. We're going to see his boat out there. This is way back. He was probably about 15 years old, 14 years old back in this picture. And that's a giant tuna that we caught. So this is Greg when he's a little older with a really nice swordfish that we caught right out here in Florida. We do a lot of daytime sword fishing out here. Years ago, we used to do nighttime sword fishing. But that's a great picture of Greg as well. I love this picture because this is my youngest son, Jeff. He doesn't fish with us that much, but we had this plane. It was a Cessna 172, 8835 Zulu. And I used to spot giant tuna fish for a lot of the harpoon boats down off of Cape Cod, off of Montauk. When they fished there in the spring, I would do spotting. I did a lot of flying back in the days when I was younger. And Jeff was a pilot, and he used to fly the plane, doing a lot of spotting and stuff with me as well. This is me with the 2 boys with a giant swordfish. This was a 400-pound swordfish, probably 489. I don't remember the exact. It's either 69 or 89. This is Greg, Jeff, and myself. We did a lot of swordfish. This was a daytime swordfish caught off of Montauk, Long Island, back in the day. Myself, a friend of mine, and the 2 boys. That was pretty much it. They've been involved in fishing with me, since, matter of fact, when Greg was young and I used to go out in the center console and I bring him in Mauritius Inlet, I used to put a rope around him and tie him to me. So if anything happened, he was with me with his life jacket on. He was probably 9 or 10 years old. He tells that story every once in a while that I tied him to the boat, but I had the rope tied to me. And that was way back when there was no electronics or anything on boats back then. Well, this is a fish that I caught. Actually, it was the first giant tuna fish that I ever caught in 1972. It was 725 pounds off of Gloucester, Massachusetts, at a little 23-foot sea craft. And I've had that mount all these years. And we did this little painting here after I built the house. Well, it's amazing when you catch your very first one. And you got to remember, I was very young in 72, so it was quite an experience. And when you first see them, when they come up and you get them and you first see them, you just can't believe how big they really are. That boat up there was the first center console ever built back in '95. Before people even saw expresses, I took a 45-foot tournament fishing cruise craft that was burnt, and I built the center console. My daughter had that painting made for me. I do this scrimshore. I've been doing it for a lot of years, actually way back in the early 80s and 90s, and I've done a lot of them for a lot of people. That's an example of one I did over there. There's the Old Man in the Sea there, Hemingway's boat, the Jupiter Lighthouse. And over on that wall over there, I have a swordfish bill that's been in the family for probably 65 years on that wall. And I was doing my life story on it in scrimshore, but I still got a long ways to go. So I have back in there the 50s and 60s and 70s. I think I'm up, maybe up to the 80s there. And I want to put the rest of my life story on there. I was out one day fishing off of Mauritius Inlet, and the water was flat calm. It was flat calm. And I was trolling for white marlin. And I saw this giant tuna fish. It was a really big giant. He was 400 pounds. And he was flopping around with his tail going, spraying water all over the place in a very tight circle. I mean, just as tight as it could be. White water all over the place, flying all over the place. And I was like, we could go harpoon him, let's go get him, I'm pulling over towards it. All of a sudden, this killer whale comes out from underneath him, grabs him in his mouth sideways, goes up into the air and goes back down, and it's just as calm as it was before it happened. And I was stood there in awe. I didn't have a camera, didn't have anything. I was like, I never seen anything like that in my life. Well, he had stunned that fish first. He must have hit him down below the water and stunned him, and that's why he was on top circling. Then he came up and ate him. I did a scrimshore of that because I had to remember it. I could see it in my head today as it was many years ago, but I couldn't take a picture of it. It didn't happen. But I tell you that story because it's like something you'll never see in a whole lifetime. This is a 1950 Dodge pickup truck. It's a 5-window, so it was a pretty rare one. It's solid steel. Actually, you can hear the door. Listen, I mean, that's real, That's all. My son and I put this together. My son and a good friend of his. They did this really to keep me young, so I go to the car shows with it, and my son likes to keep me going. They put a 600 horsepower Cummins 12-valve diesel in here, all souped up. So it's a very, very fast truck. And it's built on a 97 Dodge 2500 pickup truck. So the chassis has got 8-wheel lug tires on it. And it's the same width because that engine has a lot of torque. Pretty neat truck. When I go to the car shows with this truck, everybody stops and they come over. It's on a rat rod, you can do anything you want with it. And I found that in a hot rod shop, and I went up one Sunday morning with my wife in Daytona, and we picked it up. I paid $200 for this and then put it in there, and it's got the original DeSoto Dodge emblem on it, 1950. We couldn't get a handle for this here, so we made a handle out of a wrench and a bungee cord. It works great. But the steering wheel, my son welded it all up. out of chain. He actually made it. And the same with the shifter. It's got a 5-speed. The shifter is a big bolt, which is really comfortable. I'll crank it up for you. This truck makes me, if I took you for a ride, you'd laugh the whole time. It really makes you happy to be in this truck. I think that's what my son was trying to accomplish with me. He's trying to keep me living forever, you know. But I think, you know, it's just so enjoyable, so much fun. Anybody that rides in it loves it, you know. It just, you laugh the whole time you're in it. Yeah. I was at a car show not too long ago, and you know, I'm 83, but about a 90-year-old woman come up and said to me, she looking in that window over there, and she gives me a smile. She says, I was in this truck 1950 when I was a young girl. She says, I had a lot of good memories about this truck. And then she looks at me and she smiles and she said, I really like the handcuffs. The old handcuffs. She says, I really like the old handcuffs. I don't really know what she meant about that, but I thought it was pretty cute.